Hey guys, Noel here, and it is Thursday night, and I'm taking a break from my studies and contemplating if I should go to bed or not. But before I do that, I wanted to do a fun social media video, weblog, whatever you want to call it. And I'm sure only some of my friends will be interested in this, but this topic is going to be about pro wrestling. So, something that I've been able to write academically about, which is fun. And it's also something that I've watched since I was a little tyke. And I still like to watch Impact Wrestling every Thursday night and WWE Monday Night Raw when I can, and also if I'm in on a Friday, watch SmackDown. But if you're a wrestling fan, you know that Hulk Hogan made his return to the WWE, and what really bothers me, I thought Hulk's return was good. I'm a Hulk Hogan fan, so I usually have a bias that is very sympathetic toward his body of work on the microphone and the ring in terms of how he's performed throughout his career. Um, but whenever Hulk Hogan wrestles for competition against the WWE, he's considered not credible by um, really overly opinionated yellow journalists and know nothing internet wrestling blogists who take the rumors that are published as fact by those yellow journalists like Dave Meltzer and Wade Keller and Brian Alvarez. If you want to see a really, really bad piece of writing in the worst history book that I have ever read, and calling this thing a history book is an insult to the profession of history, is Brian Alvarez's Death of WCW. It's essentially a 300-page rant written by Brian Alvarez, who is like the lieutenant, the head lieutenant of Dave Meltzer, who's considered to be the best of these wrestling journalists. And again, I mean, these guys are about as good at journalism as Bobby the Brain Heenan. And in fact, I think Bobby the Brain Heenan was better. And I say that because if you watched wrestling, you knew that when Bobby the Brain Heenan said his bullshit lines, he's always like, I'm a broadcast journalist. So, anyway, these are the kinds of people that run down promotions like WCW or TNA as being like, quote, minor league, because they tend to they tend to take care of big name talent that, because Vince McMahon took the low road to the top of the professional wrestling industry and the old territory system was corrupt and basically collapsed in the face of competition from Vince McMahon, who was also corrupt in a different way by breaking gentlemen's agreements, buying talent from his competition, stealing wrestling venues and network deals from his competition, by basically monopolizing, possibly illegally, venues and TV contracts. But that's all beside the point. The point is Vince McMahon ended up being the brand, the WWF ended up being the brand of professional wrestling, and at its helm was Hulk Hogan. Well, when a promotion like the WCW says, well, we'd actually like to have some of those big names and compete, and the way that they draw those big names to their promotion is they say, well, we'll take better care of you than the WWF. All these, hacks, these journalists will say, oh, these places are a minor league because they treat big names that have been, made in the WWF better than their, homegrown talent. And professional wrestling is seriously problematic because it doesn't have a union system in it. So professional wrestlers are very atomized a lot of the time, and it is true that guys at the top of the card fight to keep their spot at the top of the card. And so, like a big name like Hulk Hogan goes to WCW, he's gonna, and because of the quality of his work, the people who are running WCW want to take good care of him. He's gonna take that and then try to protect his spot because that's his livelihood and that's his sense of purpose, right? And so, if you want to get around that, you need to try to create wrestling unions that have, collective labor agreements that can, basically try to make sure that professional wrestlers get fair airtime, fair, sense of control over their characters, things like healthcare, and just kind of build a collective sense of the locker room more than this kind of dog eat dog atmosphere. So that's the problem with pro wrestling. It's not that these Southern promotions are a minor league that are just awestruck with, these guys from the WWF because the WWF does things the right way. The WWF doesn't do things the right way. What the WWF does is take talent from other promotions, the AWA and WCW, and what Vince McMahon can do is, because he's smart, he can like tweak certain good things about these guys and promote them on a more mass level. So like Hulkamania was not made in the WWF. It was made in the AWA. If you go and watch Hulk Hogan on Johnny Carson when he's in the AWA, he's talking about Hulkamania, right? So Hulkamania was not born when Hulk beat the Iron Sheik, okay? Anyway, Hulk wrestled in Impact Wrestling. He didn't even really wrestle. He had 2 wrestling matches to help give the company some credibility, some mainstream exposure, and he was doing this in his 60s, right? I think he was doing it because he needed the money. He was doing it because I think he wanted to not be considered a puppet of Vince McMahon. I think he probably wanted to open up his own wrestling promotion or something like that, and I think he figured, well, one of the best things I can do is just maybe kind of try to piggyback on TNA, which has already built up a good amount of momentum. They have about a quarter of the WWE's audience, and maybe I can do something with that, similar to how I brought WCW. His star power brought WCW to being the #1 wrestling company in the country. Well, I mean, professional wrestling is very niche right now. Hulk Hogan's older. Hulk Hogan did bring in Impact Wrestling's highest ratings. I thought he wrestled really good match against Sting at Bound for Glory. I think it was 2011. But Hulk got criticized a lot by these internet wrestling fans and journalists for hogging the spotlight and burying younger talent. And at least this run in TNA, I didn't see any of that. And I'm not backstage, but Hulk Hogan was, I think, used the exact right way TNA could have used him. He had a prominent role in the company, but he didn't dominate the programming from the perspective of someone who's like, oh, we need to create new stars and push young talent. Hulk Hogan made the people who had been at TNA, like Bobby Roode and AJ Styles, and even Christopher Daniels, the best they've ever been in their career because of the storylines that he was involved in. I don't know how much, if Hulk Hogan had such creative power backstage at TNA, then these internet wrestling fans who are saying that Hulk Hogan is, horrible for having creative control should thank him, because AJ Styles, like, brooding, dark gimmick where he was kind of like a cross between, like, Sting and, like, the Crow Sting, and this kind of, like, he kind of looked like Jin Kazama from Tekken 4. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but he was like this hooded, brooding badass, because like the system had wronged him, and now he was gonna be this lone vigilante crusading against the system. Well, that was a trope that Eric Bischoff had helped create and Scott Hall helped create for Sting, right? So all these WCW guys who supposedly suck were making the TNA product really interesting, to the point where people like AJ Styles, who are not with TNA right now, are using that character that was made under Hulk Hogan's reign of terror, apparently, to compete in like internet darlings like Ring of Honor wrestling. Okay, but the whole point is that Hulk Hogan, I think, brought a lot creatively to TNA during his tenure there, both in terms of the storylines that were involved around him, and if he contributed some really good ideas. He should get credit for that. And in terms of how can you hog the spotlight when you only wrestled 2 matches in 4 years? And the average of Hulk Hogan's segment, again, I don't have quantitative runs of this, like data, but on average, as someone who watched Impact every week, Hulk Hogan's average airtime out of a 2-hour program might have been 10 minutes. That's a segment. It's a segment or 2, and that's not even every week. So people who say Hulk Hogan hogged the spotlight and buried talent they just didn't watch the show, or they're lying. And what really bothers me is that it doesn't bother me because this happened. It bothers me because of the hypocrisy. Is that when guys like Hulk Hogan, when guys like Rob Van Dam, when guys like Ric Flair, whenever any established name is in TNA Impact Wrestling, the internet says they suck, they're old, they're washed up. Same thing happened with Sting in 2010. There were rumors that he was going to go to the WWE. And everyone was in a tizzy on like NoDQ.com. Yay, Sting's coming, Sting's coming. He decides to re-sign with TNA. Sting's washed up, he sucks, he's old, blah, blah, blah. Now, Sting is probably going to sign with the WWE to fight The Undertaker before he retires at WrestleMania 31. And now everyone on the internet wrestling community is all in a tizzy again. They're all happy. So this shows a sense of hypocrisy, a ridiculous bias toward the WWE. And the total proof of this was the kind of reaction that Hulk Hogan got when he walked out on Monday Night Raw last week when he returned to the WWE. And he got cheered very, very much, deservingly. People also say, one last thing, Hulk Hogan ruined TNA. You know, Hulk Hogan, I don't think did anything to ruin TNA. Oh, I think what people might be referring to is that Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff and a lot of the talent, like, you know, about Bully Ray, and a lot of the people on the internet were advising TNA, and this is, if the TNA listened to the internet, it's their own fault, because I just said I just explained how horrible the advice of the internet is, and I realize the irony of me being on the internet to criticize the internet, but the TNA needs to go on the road. You know, you want to go out there, you're a band, you're performing, you got to get your name out there. Well, they took the risk to go out on the road at the advice of their fans and at the advice of these advisors who had a lot of success in the past with WCW, and it didn't financially pay off because TNA's on a smaller network like Spike TV. TNA can't gain any momentum because it's a niche company in a niche industry. And the fan base that it has denies it any kind of momentum, the internet, because it just craps on Southern wrestling promotions that are rivals to the WWE, especially when big name talent is there. So it's a sad fate that TNA has to put up with people as stupid as the internet wrestling fans. And Hulk Hogan, you know, you go and wherever you want to go and do your thing. I still enjoy TNA Impact's wrestling better on average than WWE's, but I think Hulk Hogan's going to do well, you know, now that he's back in the company that he helped build. So that's it, guys. Until next time, my name is Noel. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.